Hey guys, it's Coach John here, and today I want to talk about hand placement and how that's going to change over 3 different ranges I want to go over today. The 3 ranges I want to cover with you are going to be long range, mid range, and short range. And what I mean by that is long range fighting is when we are outside and we are using straight punches, jabs and crosses, and in kickboxing we have roundhouse kicks and teeps. Okay, mid-range is going to be where we have a better ability to land hooks, and so does our opponent. We can also start throwing some longer knees from here in kickboxing. And then that short range is going to be a nice inside fight. That's where we have to worry about a lot of uppercuts, a lot of heavy hooks, hooks to the body, and things of that nature. Okay, and our hand placement is going to change based on the range of that fight. The first thing I want to talk about is what we should not do. Now, as a coach and a trainer, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, we are happy if our students just keep their hands above their chin, okay? All too often, from day one to professional fights, what do you have to yell to your students? Hands up, hands up. And we get content sometimes with just having our students keep their hands above their chin, okay? Now, better than nothing. However, that can lead to dangerous situations when we are in the middle of a fight. So, what I don't like to see is somebody just keeping their hands up here, but only in one position, okay? What I say is, this is gonna help me block, but I have to do a lot of different movements to a lot of different areas, and we can mitigate that if we adjust our hand placement based on the range. The first range I'm gonna talk about is gonna be long range, okay? And what I mean by that, again, is going to be that's where I can land my jabs and my crosses and just hand striking. And when we mix in the kicks, I have my roundhouse kicks and I have my teeps. Those are all long strikes, okay? And where our hands should be when we are starting from a long range. When we are fighting long and at the end of our punches, end of those straight punches, I'm not overly concerned with big hooks. Okay, we can throw hooks from there, but a lot of times they're going to be almost straight arm hooks. They're going to start as a hook and they're going to finish really long. I'm worried about defending the front. What I like to see when we are in long range is hand placement that's going to allow me to intercept those straight punches the most. What I like to do is I like to take my rear hand, for me my right, I like to put that right in front of my chin. I like to take my jab hand, my left hand, and put that right in front of that. Now, what this does is it shortens my punches from their starting point to their target, the person's face or body. It also allows me to intercept those punches at 2 different levels before they meet my face. Okay, so before their jab or their cross can get to my face, it has to pass my lead hand, pass my rear hand, and then it can make contact. Okay, if I start with my hand placement just up and square to my face, I'm giving them one plane to aim for, okay? It's all on the same plane. When I bring them to the front, they have to get through 2 levels of defense. So from here, I also don't want to be in the habit of bringing these punches back and loading them up before throwing them. I want to throw my punches from this position and bring them right back to this position, okay? That shortens the distance from the starting point to the target, but also when they go to throw their punches at me, my hands are already here and all I have to do to intercept is open them up, parry, parry, okay? What that looks like is from here, if they are going to throw their lead hand, which if they're orthodox like me, I'm going to intercept that with my right hand, okay? All I have to do is bring that in front of my face, I can parry it, I can just catch it. Same for this side. If they throw their cross, I can use my lead hand to just open, intercept, parry, or even just step out. That's the benefit of having these hands in this position from a long range. The other cool thing about having these hands out here in front is as I go to throw either strike, let's say my jab, I put it out there, I use this hand to come to my shoulder to intercept any of their straight punches, okay? So if we're just trading jabs, and I can bring this hand over here, I have that layer of protection. How that looks straight on is as I throw this jab, I'm not going to leave this hand here and leave this opening right here. I'm going to bring this thumb to my shoulder and bury behind it. I keep my chin down to protect it with this shoulder, and now I'm well defended. So I throw that jab, this hand stays in front, okay? Same when I throw my cross from long range. As I go to throw my cross, I'm not leaving this hand here. and leaving this all open, I'm going to bring this thumb, my lead thumb, over to my shoulder and bury behind it. When I'm throwing it as a combo, they stay in front and they're both ready to intercept that straight punch. It's a very small movement to be able to make sure my face is covered when those hands are already in position to intercept long punches. Now, going into mid-range, okay? What I'm talking about when I say mid-range is there's still the ability to land jabs and crosses, but now I can throw more proper hooks as well. And then in kickboxing, we have knees. You can always land the roundhouse from pretty much any range, but we have to worry about and think about different punches coming from different angles now, okay? No longer will only a straight punch reach me, but now their hooks will reach me. This may be one of the more difficult ranges only because there's a lot to think about, and the defense isn't as straightforward as long range and close range in the examples I'm talking about. So from mid-range, okay, I have my jabs, my crosses, and they have their hooks. We can even start throwing some longer uppercuts. Where the hands are going to change now. From long range, they were more in front. Now, if I get closer to where I'm open for hooks, and we talked about why this was beneficial at long range for blocking, well, now I have a longer way to travel to block these heavier hooks, okay? My elbows are a little further out in this position. Now I have to worry about the body hooks. So what I like to talk about is keeping the hands in front still, okay? I still want to land some shorter strikes from this position, but I want to bring them in a little bit tighter now. Okay, so before I could be out a little bit more and I'm ready to parry and play. When I get a little tighter, the change is going to be in more. Okay, they're a little more in line. My left hand's still leading, my right hand's still further back. However, they've come in closer to my body, and this still allows me to turn and parry in front of my face. But now that my face is more centered, I can also slide up to block and catch these hooks. I can drop these elbows to block those body shots. Okay. So from long range to mid range, I'm bringing them in a little bit tighter, okay? I still turn to generate power on my jabs and crosses, but now I can throw proper hooks. And as I go to defend, instead of bringing that hand to my shoulder now, as I'm throwing these punches, I'm gonna bury still, but I'm gonna stay more in front. I have lead blocks, rear blocks. I can double block from here a lot easier, all right? And as I'm throwing these punches from this mid-range, I want to be ready and able to catch these hooks, okay? So from here, especially if we're doing the same punch, if I throw my hook, I want to be ready to block a hook, okay? If I'm throwing uppercuts, I want to be ready to block, okay? If they want to go down to my body, I want to be able to drop and fire back. So that mid-range can be a little more confusing because I have to adapt my style. I can't keep the hands exactly where I like to keep them from that long range stance, but I don't necessarily also want to cover up to where I can't see my opponent. I want to be able to see what they're doing from mid range still. Okay, so I need to keep my hands in position to be ready to block, but I still want to see what they're doing in that full field of view. All right, so now if I'm going to throw my jab from this mid range, I'm using it. I need to use a little bit more head movement. I want to get this hand in position to do two different things now. I want to be able to block a straight punch. I want to be able to stop an uppercut. I also want to be able to catch a hook, okay? So that hand's going to be a little bit tighter to my chin, and I'm going to keep it a little bit more neutral as far as where I dedicate its movement to. I want to be ready for all scenarios. Third range I want to talk about is that real tight close range, okay? We are fighting inside. It's a little bit more dirty boxing involved, and what I want to see from that is we went from long range with these hands out in front, ready to parry, ready to catch in the front. We went to that mid range where I'm ready to bring them up to block those hooks. I'm still ready to bring it out in front if I need to. And now when we go into close range, we're going to be having to block shots. It's not just about getting out of the way. We still want to use good head movement. We want to roll, but I'm going to be a little bit tighter now. I bring the hands up higher, okay? I like to have my elbows in tight, and I use my shoulders to help me turn those elbows to block. But now these hands don't have to move much to stop these punches. So I'm not thinking about parrying as much when I'm here. I'm thinking about blocking the shot and countering. Okay, so how that looks, again, from long range, my hands are in front, covering the front of that face. Mid-range, I'm ready to do all of the above. And then that close range, I'm in nice and tight. Now, I still keep my eyes on my opponent. I'm buried, I'm shelled up now, but I can still see what they're doing. That's imperative. If you're looking down at the ground, just blocking, you're just a punching bag. So I'm in nice and tight. I can see what they're doing, but now I'm constantly using my body, using my legs to block and return. Making sure I'm watching their shoulders, seeing what they're doing, and always ready to counter. So a lot of times it's going to be counter shots off their shots. That's when they're open. If I'm just throwing big open punches from close range, that's when I'm the most open. All they have to do is block and fire back. I want to stay tight. I want to stay compact. And everything I do comes straight back, ready to block everything they're throwing. Now, if you break this down, there's a lot of different ways you can use your hands in every position. These are just what I like to think about when I'm training and when I'm sparring. But one thing you might want to do is footwork ties into this a lot, okay? I'm never just standing in one spot throwing long range punches, mid range, or close range punches. My feet are always moving. My head, in boxing especially, needs to be moving. In kickboxing, we tend to eat a little bit more and use the hands for defense. But the footwork plays a huge part in the ranges, obviously, but also in where your hands go as well. So we need to study that. Secondly, a good study for you to do, especially if you film yourself training on the bag or film yourself sparring and fighting, is what style do you like, okay? Now, if it was up to me and I could keep somebody at the end of punches all day, that's what I would do. So that's what I try to do. That's where I try to be best. And that's where when you're training and when you're studying your film or studying other fights, is how do we keep the fight at the range we want it to be at, okay? If you like to stay long, you got to get on that bike, you got to move around, okay? You can't let them corner you. You can't let them get you against the ropes, okay? You can't get tired, because then you're going to start floating into that mid-range, and then it's easier for them to get in tight, okay? If you like to be nice and tight, nice and close, you like that inside fighting, how do you get it there, okay? How do you corral somebody who wants to stay long, stay out of range, into the corner, into the ropes, set them up, counter them to get inside? So this is levels and levels and levels to this stuff, and not one thing is perfect, not one thing is right, okay? So I highly recommend you study fights, you break down fights yourself, and ask yourself what you would do, and then try to put it into practice. If you don't put this stuff into practice, you will never get better at it and you'll never learn. All right, guys, I'll leave you with this. If you're getting any value out of these videos and out of these trainings, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It helps out a lot, and the more growth we get, the more content I can bring you guys. Just remember, nothing's gonna work if we don't put it into practice.